Welcome to Bright MLS Revealed, where we pull back the curtain and bring you conversations with the people who drive the real estate industry and the policies that impact the health of real estate in the Mid-Atlantic. We're looking forward to bringing you the latest information on a wide variety of topics central to innovation, technology, and the real estate industry. Our host is Bright MLS President and CEO, Brian Donnellan. Let's get started. Today's episode focuses on the Clear Cooperation Policy. Why is it important? How have agents embraced it? Brian is joined today by three key industry leaders to discuss.
Thank you all for joining me here today. And if you would take a minute just to introduce yourselves. Mark, would you go first?
Oh, good afternoon, Brian. My name is Mark Lowham, and again, I have the great privilege of being on the member of the executive committee and the board of directors for Bright MLS here in Washington now for the past, I guess it's almost 6 years.
Cindy, how about you? Introduce yourself, please.
Hi, good afternoon, Brian. I'm Cindy Ariosa. I was the chairman of the board of MRIS. Now currently serve as the treasurer and on the executive committee and on the board of directors with Mark for Bright. And on the side, I happen to be the chairman of NAR's MLS Policies and Issues Committee. So I lived and breathed clear cooperation all of last year.
That's great. Thank you, Cindy. And how about you, Denee?
Hello, Denee Evans. I'm the CEO of the Council of Multiple Listing Services, or CMLS, because we all love acronyms. And thank you very much for having me. As you said, CMLS is the trade association, the National Trade Association for Multiple Listing Services. We have just over 200 MLSs, but those 200 MLSs serve about 1.3 million subscribers across the country. So.
I really do want to thank you guys very much for taking the time. Everybody is busy. And with that, let's go ahead and move into this. So Mark, I'm going to ask you to answer the first question. Can you tell us your take on the Clear Cooperation Policy and in general, its impact on marketing real estate, particularly in a residential area?
In terms of how it's affected our industry and marketing, I would say this: we all depend on very clear and accurate information as we position assets. When we are advising our clients, having a clearer set of data is critical to our mission. And I think that everybody in this industry has benefited by having a better set of data, a more accurate representation of the marketplace as they get ready to either buy or sell real estate. A very interesting thing that I've noticed too among some agents is it has prompted many agents to assemble a much more robust set of information, whether it's photographs, videos, three-dimensional tours, floor plans, right from the very beginning when they launch a listing now. Again, the benefit to the consumer is it's giving them a very broad and clear view of what's available in the marketplace right from the very beginning. And more important than ever, it's given them the opportunity to see those opportunities in a way that's safe and convenient. They can do it from their home, they can do it from their computer, from their phone, right from the very beginning. And I think that's a real benefit to the consumer.
Cindy, I'll go to you. Just your impressions on the policy thus far.
So I think it created an efficient, orderly marketplace, right? This was consumer driven. The consumer wanted to know what was out there. And we were not able to Mark's point, create an accurate data policy for us. It was a collaboration with Denee and the CMLS community. So it wasn't just the MLS community on its own. NAR actually, took the lead as well. There was confusion in the marketplace. And I do think it leveled the playing field for the consumers. All the brokers have access now to all of the information. So we can all give our buyers what they're asking for and created a better marketplace, more orderly for us.
And Denee, you probably have more of a national perspective on this. What are your thoughts?
Having all of the information there for the consumer, what is in the best interest in the consumer, when we can have that as the driving point as an industry to best meet their needs and best power the professionals, I think that is a win-win for all of us as an industry and as for the consumer. So kudos to you. And I just think overall that just creates, like you said, Cindy, that more efficient marketplace with a comprehensive data set.
That's great. Cindy, I'll start with you on the next question. It's been about a year since this policy went in the very beginning. There were very vocal, people that are against this, and there were a lot of people that were for this. Where do you think sentiment is today?
So I think it took a lot of education. You know, the focus really was on, as you mentioned earlier, cooperation. We were consumer driven, we're client driven, and then we had that extra fair housing element. So I think a lot has come into light. You know, the Newsday article of Long Island about the fair housing, that actually helped. I think it was the education. I don't think everybody realized, you know, 3% of the market was on, it takes them 3 times longer with days on the market if you're not on the MLS systems. We're closer to the AVM value. So I think it wasn't just the Cool Kids Club that had access to some of the listings. We needed to have maximum exposure. And I think having maximum exposure for any seller gives them the best price and maximum return on their investment. And once we started educating everybody, I think it's quieted down. Of course, we still have a few people that will try to game the system no matter what we try to do. But this really was consumer driven and client driven. And we wanted to create and keep the spirit of cooperation so that we all can sell everybody's houses, guys. I don't care who sells my house, just sell it. And I think once we started educating people, we've had a lot more cooperation, not to use that word again, but a lot more adaptation too. Everybody understands a more clear picture of the importance of putting it in the MLS.
That's great. And Denee, you know, I'm assuming that across the country, there's a variety of different, but it probably followed the same sort of trajectory, you know, a lot of talk very early on. Where do you think it is today?
I would echo that on the education piece. There was a lot of education that needed to be done to understand what it was. I think there was a lot of confusion with the difference between a coming soon versus putting it on the MLS. So there was a lot to do that. I believe Bright already had a coming soon policy, so you guys were ahead of it there again with already having that piece there. And it's about cooperation. It's about being part of the collective that is working to sell someone's home or to find that perfect house. And so it's being part of that. And you know, I've heard so many stories of people kind of secretly speaking up saying, I'm so glad that we did this because I didn't feel I could speak up before and sort of say something because then I wouldn't have access to some of those information. So by doing this, it's brought it out and just made the cooperative back to the heart of the industry. It is back to the core of what makes this work. And again, to the benefit of the consumer.
Mark, just to pivot on something there. So we've discussed how, you know, the MLS has been around for years and 100 years, and cooperation is a foundation of that. And some folks are out there saying, you know, just that's because that's the way it was. Maybe that's not the way it should be. Why is this still a really good reason to be the foundation of what it is that we're doing? I mean, is there any reason that we should modify or change it to be more modern, or does it just make sense?
Well, I think that we've had to adapt because technology has evolved, and all of us, anybody who's in business, but particularly in the real estate business, has had to adapt to the new opportunities that technology provides, not only us as professionals, but also to our clients. And so having an accurate set of data is a very fundamental piece of what both consumers and professionals need. And so I think it was this, you know, clear cooperation and Bright's off MLS policy are probably just one of many things that we'll see evolve based on the digital opportunities and the technology that forces us to evolve as an industry. So, but I think this was very important and it's fundamental. And again, it continues to serve all of us well and bring us closer together, in my opinion.
This is a complete transparent marketplace, and that works for the brokers, the agents, and the consumers. Is that a true statement? Anybody can answer that. I was just a question I came up with.
I would love to take that, Brian, in that I think where we were going before with these pocket listings and these pocket networks and more siloed is we were actually going backwards. We were creating more of these dark areas of information that not everyone had access to, and that by us doing this is actually moving us forward by keeping it that open and transparent marketplace that is where everything is, right? It is very easy to get access to information, and by doing this, it is actually advancing our industry.
Great point. Hey, Denee, let's go. You can take the third question here. Coming up with the policy is the easy part, right? Compliance with this. You know, how do you think compliance with this policy is going? And do you think agents are following this policy?
So overall, I'm hearing that it is going pretty well from our members across the country. There are legitimate situations where a listing should not be on the MLS for the purposes of that seller, right? And those ways are in the MLS, and there's a system and a process for using that. But for gaming the system or to get around the system and the heart of that cooperation, that is not one of them. So yes, there are those still happening out there, but I'm hearing less and less because it is really going back to that education piece. And I think some of it was, for the NAR policy, it hit at the same time as the pandemic. So being able to have those meetings was a little more challenging. So that's taken a little longer than I think initially thought, but overall I'm hearing that it is really going quite well. But again, those questions come up, but overall a really big positive with good feedback.
Great. Mark, where do you feel agents are in compliance or adherence or desire to adhere to this policy?
Oh, I think people are, the vast majority are stepping up and they're doing, they're abiding by the policies and doing the right thing. But I also think that the consumer is now starting to drive some of this. So we've certainly educated our agents and our members as to the importance of this. Probably the next opportunity is to continue to educate the consumer so that they can go to their agent and really demand that they want their property to be completely available to everybody in the market, regardless of where you're working, right? And I think that's also driving it right now and helping, consumers across the board.
And Denee, let me go back to you, just again, from a national perspective. How confusing is it with all these different statuses and pocket listings versus office exclusives versus off MLS? How confusing is that across the country?
It is definitely not a consistent conversation, which is why CMLS actually brought together people from across the country, and we created an implementation guide to help with as that rolled out, there was some more consistency to it. But as part of that process, we realized the differences that there are. So we're continuing that conversation to say, do we need to discuss what that might be from every days on market, the coming soon, the statuses, just to advance that so we can get some more consistency, because one of you had mentioned that before, is just we're seeing as part of this working from home, the ability to move more, work from home. I can live where I want to, not where I have to. They're wanting to move wherever, and so needing to just have access to that information more openly and more transparently is even more so. So it's this policy in our current environment, I think, has become even more important, that we just have to do this because it's got to be available to more people.
Yeah, and maybe the focus on consistency should be a driving force moving forward.
Yes, because that footprint of where people are going to be looking is from all over. It is not just in your local footprint. Those words and meanings are beginning to become more and more important across boundaries that we put on as the Bright boundary versus the neighboring MLSs, less and less the consumer to care.
Right. Mark, our last question here today. Fair housing has always been the driving force behind the Bright MLS policy. Do you think it's having an impact?
Oh, I think it clearly is. I mean, I think particularly today, if you're interested in just learning about real estate or buying or selling, you shouldn't be limited by where you live, the type of property you live in, or who you're working with. You, as a consumer, should have information that is clear and accurate, completely transparent. Again, regardless of who you are, who you're working with, and who you know. And I think that the Bright policy, the clear cooperation policies, have made a huge step forward in accomplishing that on behalf of the consumer.
Well, I thank you guys very, very much. I thank you for your time today, for discussing this very, very important topic. I thank you for your influence in everything and what we've had to do to get this going. I'm proud of what we've done. I'm proud of what you guys done. I thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedules today to take a few minutes and discuss this.
Of course.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.